Hey Austin, how's it going?
Neil, I'm doing well. We're here in another AMA. I always love our topics and the banter back and forth, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this one is on a big topic. I think this is one of the biggest topics, especially today, right now. In Canada, North America, there is a unemployment's high. Getting hired is hard. It's harder than it's ever been, and I think there's so many important things to talk about as it pertains to getting hired. Um, let me start by so you've hired how many people would you say you've hired in your career?
Um, Probably, I'd say probably a good 500 people. Good
Okay,
500 people.
so hiring 500 people, you have had you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yep, I have.
Okay, so obviously all of us can kind of guess what the bad and the ugly might look like, and we can all pray that we're not one of the bad or the ugly when we're applying. When it comes to the good, let's focus on this for a second. So as it pertains to the good, if you were to say isolate maybe five, three or five, pick a number, three or five top, let's say, aspects of a good hire or a good um, person who would be applying for a job, what would you look for? What would be those three or five things that would stand out?
Okay, so as an overarching topic, like what I would say is the best candidates are prepared. Now we're going to put that into a bucket, but prepared is the biggest thing because that's what the differentiator is. You can be a good candidate, but not as prepared as someone else. And if the skill level is the same, the person who's prepared is going to get the job because it's a differentiator. And what does being prepared mean? Right? Being prepared could be, are you the person who came who knows the company, so you've done research on the company, you know that you've done a background on the company, you know what the stock price is, like you know who the leadership people are, different things that happen in the corporation, acquisitions that happen recently, strategies that are happening within the corporation right now, um, key market items. So who are the competitors? What are they thinking about right now? Even a different approach. If you're thinking about, well, what are the different risks within the company or the industry that is going to show that you're paying attention. It's not you saw a job online and you applied. No, you've been preparing and thinking about this company for a while, this organization for a while, and you're willing to have an intelligent and capable of having an intelligent conversation about what's important to this firm and then how you can fit into the firm. When you're thinking about being prepared, you're thinking about one, these items in terms of speaking intelligently and being able to address certain pieces. The other thing that you can be thinking about is, well, you know what? What's something that's going to differentiate you, right? So if Austin's here and other candidates here, well, what's Austin going to do differently? Is it that I've created a 30, 60, 90-day plan for success in the role? Is it that I have a SWOT analysis that's created? Is it that I've actually built a strategy going into this job that I can share with the different leaders that I'm going to be meeting with to say, you know what, this is, I don't have all the information. I'm not internal, but I have done my research and I've built a strategy in terms of what success might look like in this role, what success might look like in this division, what success might look like for this company in terms of a go forward. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but showing that you care enough to be prepared, that's a differentiator. And that's what's important, especially in the current environment, especially with unemployment so high. We've seen recently there's certain organizations that have eliminated staff members recently as well, and we've seen mass layoffs. And you know what? How do you differentiate yourself is important, not in terms of just getting the job, but remaining uh, and being seen as a top talent so that you can retain current employment and be seen for the next opportunity as well.
I love there's I guarantee there's at least a two and a three in here, but I want to stick on prepared for a second. I like what you said, 30, 60, 90-day plan. That's something that most people might not think of. Let's get granular just for a second. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, I want to be hired by ABC company, right? And I'm applying for a data analyst job with ABC company. Now, we talked about, gathering data on the competitors, gathering data on, the movement in the company, the information on the company. If you were to look for this information, where would you go?
Google's your best friend. All right. So one, Google, so that you can look up the company, do a deep dive research. The other thing that I would do is I'd go on LinkedIn as a platform to leverage too, to look up people that are within the firm. And you could even see people that are in the current role that you are seeking, or the management level of the role that you're seeking, and then look at what their path has looked like. So it gives you an idea of what does that path look like to get to that position, and even get to the position after that too. What you're doing is you're equipping yourself with as much information as possible to be able to speak intelligently about the firm and about the position too. So yes, I think you could do Google, because on Google you'll be able to find what are different and recent headlines, articles with regards to the company, so that you understand what's going on with it. Also, you can do a deep dive in terms of, you mentioned data analyst as a role. Well, what does a data analyst actually do? What is the role? What is the position? How can you be able to articulate, that you understand the job description, you understand how you'll make an impact, and then from there, build up on top of that. Because I think everyone looks at, one, the person can do the job, but two, are you hiring just for the position? Are you hiring a great talent that's eventually going to move up and do more for the firm? I think that in the past, people hired for roles. I think now you hire for talent. So you hire talent that can do that job really well, but that person is going to be able to move up and grow and create even a greater impact at the firm. So you're hiring great talent, not just for a role.
I love that. And, I think it's so important to, I think you're kind of like bleeding a little bit into culture and knowing the company culture, which is super important. One of the things I want to just put a highlight on, Doug. Thanks so much for dropping that in the chat. Doug just dropped theorg.com in the chat. So what's really cool with the org is you can, it's a great point. You can pull up companies' org charts. You can actually see where people are in the company and what relation they have to other people. It's much more. So LinkedIn obviously gives you the ability to kind of, have that communication, those touch points. But the org allows you to see where they rank, because, a senior director or director might not actually, like a senior director and a junior director may be actually in the same position, right? So this gives you a kind of an overview of where they actually end up. So I really appreciate you dropping that in the chat there, Doug. If you were to say number two, so we said number one, be prepared. Number two, what would you say number two would be?
In terms of so when I say preparedness as being the overarching piece, I view being prepared in terms of getting a role is overarching and all encompassing, right? Yeah, there's, you could be very, very well suited for the job from an educational standpoint. You could be well networked. You could do all these different things, but all of them come down to being prepared. Even creating a professional brand for yourself, right? That all falls under being prepared. Because I think a lot of great candidates are not prepared, right? And they're not doing the research, they're not doing the additional steps. So when I talk about being prepared as an overarching item, it is overarching. So it's not preparedness is one thing, and then do dressing for the role is the next thing, or having coffee chats is the next thing. It's all being prepared. It's just what are the sub areas, and the sub areas, in my opinion, are what in terms of getting a job. Well, in terms of the current market, in the past, and I would say in the past as close as 2021, 2022, you could be
Yeah.
switching firms consistently. There was, if you were a great talent and you were well educated, you had a specific field that you were like an expert in, you could be jumping firms and you'd be
Yeah.
getting paid to do it. And very easy because there was so many opportunities. Now, the current environment is, it's not what you know, it is who you know. It is absolutely who you know in the current environment because, as you mentioned, Emil, unemployment is high, right? And lots of firms are finding cost cutting opportunities to to streamline items. So who do you know? Who supports you, right? From a mentorship standpoint, who supports you? From a sponsorship standpoint, who supports you? Because who's going to be in your corner to be able to get that next opportunity or to be able to ensure that you're remaining in the opportunity that you have? And I think that preparedness piece of relationships, networking, mentors, sponsors, all these things are important. And I'll tell you, not enough people put time into these things. They think that this stuff just happens. Opportunities just happen. New roles just happen. Promotions just happen. Nothing just happens, right? Maybe at certain levels, things could just happen for you because there might be, a vacancy in a role. But as you continue to grow, as you continue to climb, things don't just happen. You need to be very prepared because prepared is having a plan, having conversations, planting those seeds. And as you're doing those things, that's when you're going to see opportunities start to happen because, you know, the people that are prepared, like you make opportunities happen by being prepared. None of this is luck. And if you once you start getting past the, I'm just going to hope or I wish that would be the case. Well, you know what? You can keep hoping and wishing. I have a plan, and this is how it's going to happen.
Let's there's I think there's I think there's a couple different. Again, I want to get a little granular with these things. I think it's important, especially for people listening in, because they can really get an idea of the things to do. And I think just before I get into a specific question, preparedness. To your point, and I love that explanation. It's not one of the five things you need to do. It is the thing you need to do. But within it, under that umbrella, there are 5 to 10 different things, and there are these activities that you should do. So to kind of recap, and we said it before, but I'll say it again. Obviously, you want to make sure your LinkedIn is updated, right? That's your digital resume, right? If you have other social media things, like, I mean, when you were hiring people, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably Googled these people, right?
I did. I
Yeah.
absolutely did.
So would you agree? You got to keep your Instagram, your Facebook, these kind of social media platforms that you want to keep private. Make sure they're private. Like you don't want your potential employer seeing what you're doing on a Saturday night necessarily, kind of thing, right? We got to close these things in. Coffee chats or meetings with people within the org chart or that are around this person. And also just to throw this out there, if let's say Bob is the hiring manager for this particular role, and you see, that Steve is constantly liking his posts. It might be good to rub shoulders with Steve, right? Because he might be a pseudo gatekeeper too. Like, you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, I would. And again, I think that it is important to, and Emil, you bring up a great point, and I did want to get to this too. That a lot of people focus on how do I like who should I network with and have conversations with within my direct line, right? I need to know my manager to then know my senior manager to then know my director to then know my senior director to know my VP, so on and so forth, right? But maybe you want to grow differently, right? And so I think that it's important to know people across the firm and and across industry, not just at your firm, because we saw it recently, and unfortunately, some people saw some terminations at one of the major technology firms even yesterday. And it's important that you know people across industry and that you're taking the time to have coffee chats and build relationships and meaningful relationships with people across industry, because you know what? A lot of people are so, and we see it all the time, that they're so, um, I'll use the word loyal to their one particular firm. But you have to keep in mind that these organizations, it is an organization. It is not a, the organization or the business doesn't have feelings. Ultimately, it's responsible for generating revenue for shareholders, right? And it's not about feelings if the role that you're doing is not necessarily fit for where the organization is going forward. But if you are so loyal to the firm that you think, oh no, like I need to work here. This is where I need to listen, where I need to work. But you definitely have value across industry. Might be another firm that's doing the same thing. It might be another firm that's doing the same thing that might have a better opportunity for you, but you don't have relationships there. You need to actually take time to build relationships across industry in different places and also internally too, because you don't know what the future is going to hold, right?
Yeah.
So making that investment in yourself to be able to grow your brand. So when you hear us speak, it's not necessarily just saying build a relationship with your manager, build a relationship with your manager's manager. It is building your professional brand across industry so that people know you and they know the talent that you are. So when you are looking for another role, looking for another opportunity, just trying to get your brand out there, to even test your market value, right? Because so many people have no idea what their market value is. We've had conversations with so many people that think their market value is here, when the reality is, based off their talent, abilities, education, they're here. What they're making should be here, and they have no idea because they're not having those conversations.
Yeah.
And it's not having those conversations to necessarily just make a jump, but it is having those conversations to understand what your market value is, even from a monetary standpoint. Then you can start determining, well, you know what is the value of the relationships I have internally? Then you can start balancing it out. Then what is the value of stability of my current opportunity? What's the value of these different things? Then you can start seeing if it balances out. And if it doesn't, then you can make a jump. Right. So these are the things that we talk to people about in terms of, this is how you need to start thinking from a getting hired, knowing market value, growing in your career, and the steps and things you should be thinking about in order to be able to do that. It doesn't just happen overnight.
It's so okay. So you know this archetype. You've seen it 100 times, Austin. Obviously, I've seen it 100 times. One of the common mentees that we have come through, fortunately or unfortunately, is I've been with the same company for 20 years and they let me go and I was blindsided, and now my severance is coming up. I find this one so interesting, and it kind of talks a lot to what you're talking about, right? Like, it doesn't mean that if you're talking to, like, I think there's this stigma about, if you're working for this company, I can't talk to the competition, I can't talk to the people, and it's actually very short-sighted. In fact, your competition, there's sayings about it, right? Know thy enemy, right? Your competition you should know what your competition does. You should know what and even have a relationship, like have a working relationship with your competition so that you have a place to go if you need. Because the one thing that's really important to know now, let me qualify this by saying, obviously, we don't want to go and yell it from the rooftops that we're cajoling with the competition. But in the same vein, if you have a working relationship with your direct or indirect competition, these are not, you're not cheating on anybody. You're merely maintaining open doors, and that's actually a smart business play, not just from as a business person, not just as an employee. You have to know your competition. Just like when you're applying for the job, you want to know what your competition is doing. While you're in the job, you also want to know what the competition is doing. But also from a personal standpoint, You have to have that protection. You have to build in that protection, and the only person that's going to protect you is you. Because to your point about loyalty, I'm just thinking about one of our recent mentee onboards, one of my recent mentee onboards, where he's like, oh, I didn't expect it. I was so loyal to them, and they weren't loyal to me. And I said, well, sorry, you said you were loyal to them. Who's them? And he's like, well, the company. And I'm like, okay, but the company has no feelings. I'm like, were you loyal to your manager? Well, yeah, I really enjoyed my manager. Okay, so we could say you're loyal to your manager. Well, I don't know if that was really. And you see, the whole thing is that I think we're mixing up loyalty with I'm afraid of change. I think
I agree with you.
There's such a mix up there. It's not funny, right? Like it's you're not being, and we call it loyalty because it sounds nice, but really what it is we're afraid of change. So I think when we're going and looking at jobs, when we're going to get hired, when we're trying to go down this process, or even if we're not and we're comfortable in our position, we should still know what the competition is doing. We should still know what people are doing outside, and we should still be prepared. Right? If someone came to you, if you're making $100,000 a year and someone came to you and says, you know what, I'll pay you $110,000 for the same job, you might not move because you might be like, you know what, where I am, it's not worth the discomfort of moving. That's not going to be enough to change my life. When you break down the brass tax or the real tax, not brass tax, when you put in the real tax and that. But if you found out that everybody else in your industry is making 50% more, then there might be reason to make a move, or at least have the wherewithal to go back to your employer and be like, hey, I need a raise. Now I want to stay on top. I know we're coming a little bit off topic there. I want to stay on the topic of getting hired. So getting hired, actually, we can break it down into two facets, I think. Facet number one is obviously getting hired, right? That's I'm going out, I'm getting my job, I've never had a job before, or what have you. Facet number two is promoted, I call it. And the reason I want to break it into two avenues like that, your new hire and you're getting promoted, is because a lot of the times, talking about moving the corporate ladder, talking about jumping from one company to another, that is a promotion, right? To a lot of people. Like if you are in a job and you're getting paid $60,000 a year, and you jump from company A to company B and you get paid $80,000 a year and you now have a senior title, that, although it's with a different company, is still a promotion in effect, right?
Promotion. It is a promotion.
So if you let's talk about some. So let's say you're in that position. You want to. It's tough to climb up the corporate ladder yourself. You want to explore some other opportunities, but you don't obviously want to burn the house down while you're standing in it, kind of thing. You want to be really careful and smart about it and tactile about it. What are some of the things that you would recommend people to do to build those bridges without shaking any trees, if you want to call it that?
So, I would say this, and again, I do think it's important. One, and we talk about climbing the corporate ladder, but I would say that it is and should be very rare now that people believe that they're going to remain with a firm for 20, 30, 40 years from like today onwards. Yeah. And I say that because, I'd say it depends on the individual. If you want to continue to grow and have aspirations of growing to a very high or senior level, I don't think it's realistic. When you look at many different senior people across many institutions, they have jumped. They have made moves. They have shifted because as you become more and more senior, there are less positions. And you don't want to get caught behind someone who might just be sitting in that role forever, because that means that, and if you're waiting for them to move and you're unwilling to move to another place, then you're stuck. And so I think it's unrealistic to just be at one particular place and not take those external promotions to be able to grow yourself, grow your skills and abilities. But to answer your question, I don't think that you need to necessarily hide that you're having conversations externally. I wouldn't go shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is too, people are very uncomfortable saying, you know what, I'm sharing or I'm having conversations with other firms, or I'm going through the process of understanding my market value. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at many major firms, even here in Canada, like the banks invest with one another. That's a fact.
Yeah.
The biggest shareholders of many of our different banks is their direct competitor. That is actually a fact. So if they can work with one another, why would you not be willing to have a conversation to understand your market value, and two, to see if what opportunities look like outside of, right? So I would say, it's very normal to reach out to say, you know what, you're not reaching out looking for a job, but you're reaching out to have conversations, to build your network, and then understand if it's a different department, what happens within that department. If it's a different bank, I just want to have an understanding of the processes and procedures and how things work there. If it's another institution, same kind of thing. If it's just another firm or different industry generally, again, you're having conversations. It's nothing to hide. If you look on, my LinkedIn, if you look on Maps, like you'll see that there's a variety of different people on there, many different industries. You don't have to hide that you have relationships and connections with people in different industries, different firms. But I do think you're not screaming from the rooftop and about I'm looking for a new job right now. It's not. I also don't think that people should necessarily put. You know how you're on LinkedIn, you see people with the open to work.
There's
I don't. I wouldn't necessarily do it if I'm in a role because that is too much to say. You know what? I'm looking for another job. I don't want to do the job I'm doing. I think that you have to be very tactical about it in terms of what your approach is. And again, there's a professional approach. I think that's a bit too much. If you don't have a role currently and you're looking for an opportunity, that's another thing. If you are a business owner and you're looking to take on new projects and contracts, that's another thing. You can absolutely put that banner. If you're working for a firm and you have a full-time gainful employment and you put that, I think it's a bit too much, in my opinion.
It's honestly, I got to agree with you. So the thing with the open to work, there is some controversy around that. The thing with the open to work tag. So I want to qualify that as well by saying, if you are having a nonchalant chat with your one up, and he's like, yeah, I don't care. She's like, yeah, I don't care if you put your open to work. Or I expect you to put your open to work, like you want to, because they believe it shows value or the like, then maybe that's. But I'm going to say that if you have your open to work on, it almost feels hostile. Like it's almost like you better.
It's not even almost. It's not even almost. I think it absolutely does. And even if your manager says it's okay, well, you know what? That's just who you report to. They report to someone, and that person reports to someone, and your LinkedIn is open that anyone could see it. So I think that you need to be very mindful of, again, when you talk about your brand, that's associated with your brand, like your professional brand. When people come on and see, what do you want them to see? What do you want to come across? You want to come across that you're looking for a new job when you're in a current position with that firm? No. Is it okay that you are having conversations? Yes. It's just there's different approaches to take to get to the same place, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I think that if you're thoughtful around, well, the brand that you're building, what you want to be seen doing, what you want to be known for, that's one thing that I'd probably steer away from doing, because I don't think that it carries. I don't think it carries well, right? Because
it can look desperate too. I will say, like, I just there's a time and a place. There's just no doubt about it. Listen, we got a 1 minute left. I just want to do a quick sort of overview of some of the things we talked about, and obviously plug our next episode on elevator pitch. But I love the idea. Again, just it's not about here are the top 3 things to get hired. It's more like, if you want to get hired, you got to be prepared. And here's a bunch of activities to complete, right? Do update your LinkedIn. Maybe not with the open to work tag, unless you're new to the market, right? That's fine. But if you're with a current employer, it might not be a good idea. Anyway, do update your LinkedIn. Do go talk to other hiring managers. Do go have coffee chats. Do network. That's huge. And by the way, next, June 4th, when we do elevator pitch, your elevator pitch is what you're saying at the beginning of this networking meeting. It's what's going to brand you, what's going to make you look different, how you are going to be, how are you going to be above the crowd. So again, do network, do LinkedIn, do a SWOT analysis, do look at the competition for the company in which you're applying, do try and get an idea of what the organization chart looks like for the company. Thanks again, Doug, for putting that up there. That's awesome. Great reminder. Do research into the culture of the company and really understand where you're planning on putting your hat. You don't want to get into a company and then realize, oh my gosh, where am I? What am I doing? Right? We got to make sure all these things are lined up. Again, June 4th, we're going to be talking about all things elevator pitch. Post June 4th, so starting June 16th, we'll be having guests come on, have chats with us here, which is awesome. As you may or may not know, these AMA chats are live. They are recorded and they are fully unedited. So this is us coming at you. Always feel free to drop questions in the Q&A. We'll post this up in the members section. And otherwise, good luck getting hired. Austin, great speaking with you as always. Have a good night.
Thank you.